Hello, my name is Jonathan Clark, and I'm talking to you from my studio here in southeastern New Brunswick in Canada today to bring you the last official part of a 4-part series that I've been putting together here to teach you how to do live DJ performances with the assistance of the Ableton Live software. Now, a couple of the topics that I've covered in this whole series have been a little bit complex and confusing for some of you, I imagine. So anytime that you get frustrated and you're starting to wonder, is it worth spending all this time trying to figure this out, remember one thing. Years ago, DJs used to have to carry around thousands and thousands of vinyl records through airports, whatnot, all around the world when they were traveling, going to shows. And let me tell you, that's annoying. Nowadays, you can put thousands of songs on a single USB key. You can put your Ableton set on this USB key, and you can travel anywhere, any place that has a DJ booth with a laptop that is running the Ableton software. You will be ready to perform without having to lug all this stuff around. So even though it's a little confusing and complicated at times here, bear with me. This last section shouldn't be as confusing as the previous section of the video. So we've got all the gear set up here in the studio. I think we're ready to go. Now, in the last couple of sections, what we talked about integrating all kinds of different pieces of equipment into our DJ setup. We talked about using generic MIDI controllers, keyboard controllers. We talked about different mixers, some that might have MIDI incorporated into them, others that don't, others that you need an external sound card to talk to them. In this part of the video, we're going to keep things very simple in terms of equipment. We're going to use a single piece of equipment that itself is very complex, but it's nice because it integrates a whole bunch of things into that one piece of equipment. And it's a mixer called a Xone 4D. It's manufactured by Allen Heath. That's a very good, very good mixer. A little bit expensive for the casual user, but it's nice because it incorporates a USB-based external sound card plus a regular conventional audio DJ mixer plus a MIDI controller, all into one unit. So this is going to seem like it's a very simple setup, because basically all we need to perform is our laptop with Ableton and some music, a set of headphones for cueing, and this Allen Heath Xone 4D mixer. And you know, it's going to look like a very simple setup, but it's incredibly powerful, all the different stuff that you can do with it. So I'll show you how this all works. And like I say, this is the last official part of this series. I'm also working on a separate kind of an appendix video to talk about the different effects that you can find within Ableton that you might want to use in a live DJing performance. So you can look for that video online shortly. Also, after this is over, I'm going to do a very short performance, maybe 5 minutes here in this video, to kind of show you the capabilities, you know, real-world example. But if you want to watch something a little bit more detailed, a little bit longer, later on tonight I'll record this week's episode of my weekly radio show called Subterranean Homesick Grooves. This will be episode 155, it's airing later on this week. So I'll record that whole thing, an hour-long show, film it, give you the different perspectives, one from the cueing point of view, so you can hear what I, as a DJ, am hearing, and I'll do a second version on YouTube also, which just shows what the dance floor hears, the master output. So you may find those to be interesting, worth watching, to learn a little bit, you know, get a little bit more familiar with the capabilities, watching me work the controls and whatnot. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to cover the mixer itself, describe how it's all laid out. We'll go into Ableton and we'll set up our routing and preferences, and we will decide which effects we're going to use, and we will set up those effects within Ableton, within our project or set, probably mostly on send-return channels, maybe 1 or 2 on the channel strips, we'll see. We'll go into MIDI mapping mode, and we will map all of the controls from our Xone 4D to those various effects and some other controls within Ableton. We'll test the controls, make sure they all worked, and then we'll play a short set. So let's get to work. So let's take a look at the features of the Xone 4D mixer MIDI controller sound card. Basically, looking at the back of it, let's see what we have plugged in here. We have a USB cord, and that's going to the laptop, so that's where all the communication's coming in. All my lines of audio, 4 channels of audio, are going to be coming in through that USB cord. I also have 2 RCAs into the channel 1 right now, and that's only because my tablet, my Nexus 7, is hooked up. And that was just so I could listen to some music while I was setting up here. I also have this feed, RCAs, going to my booth monitor, and that is my, that's my Yorkville Z55 monitor, powered speaker. We have XLRs coming out for the master main, and those are going to my room stereo system. Yep. And finally we have the power cord. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Now, looking at the front of the mixer, we have essentially the center of the mixer is an audio mixer, a DJ mixer. And this is very, very similar to, say, a Xone 92. And then on the outside, we have a MIDI controller. It's on both sides. It's almost like we had 2 separate 4-channel MIDI controllers attached to this to a mixer in the middle, but this is really just one integrated MIDI controller, so don't think of it as 2 separate ones. Okay, and we have right now you can see that see these buttons here, SC1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That means the input's coming from the sound card, which means through the USB cable. Let's turn that on. So I am no longer going to be getting a signal from my tablet. And okay, so let's go over the features. In terms of audio, there's my volume for the master, for the dance floor. Here's my volume control for the booth, for the monitors. Here is my volume control for the headphones. Here is the, oh sorry, that is the Q mix ratio for the headphones. I'm going to put it entirely onto Q. Here's the volume for the headphones. It goes from 0 to 11, a reference to Spinal Tap. And 4 channels, 4 audio channels. And like I say, channel 1 is going to be sound card 1 and 2 when we get into routing in Ableton. Channel 2 is going to be sound card 3 and 4. Channel 3 is 5 and 6. 4 is 7 and 8. Each channel has EQ settings, low, mid, high. It's only a 3-knob EQ, whereas some of the other Allen Heath mixers, like the Xone 62, are 4. Those ones have 2 mid-range adjustments. Here's our Q buttons. The interesting thing about these is, on the Pioneer, remember how you turned each one off and on independently? This one, if you hit Q on a different channel, it turns off whatever channel is currently queued. So you can imagine that can be kind of frustrating if you want to queue in 2 channels at once. But it's okay. All you have to do is hit 2 buttons at the same time, and you're okay. Or 3 at the same time. There is a crossfader, which you can turn on by pushing this button down. I'm going to keep it off. It doesn't matter. We have filters, and I will show you a filter later on once we get playing what the effect sounds like. The LFO, low frequency oscillator, I don't think we need to get into that right now. You're not going to be using that, but it is a tap tempo button, so if you keep tapping it, it'll figure out what speed you're tapping at. We're going to make sure the MIDI knob here is turned on, and this mixer, this MIDI controller has a clock, and so you might want to sync it with other equipment. We're not going to bother because it's not really that important. We're only using these as MIDI controls. We're not trying to synchronize everything. Queuing. Here's an interesting thing. With this mixer, if you do not have either this button or this button pushed down, your master output signal is going to come through your headphones all the time. And if you're used to having quiet in your headphones, except when a Q button is pressed in, that's going to confuse you. So press one of those in, and then it'll function the same way as if you're used to, say, a Pioneer mixer, where it's quiet when all the cue buttons are turned off. If you're using a different mixer, another Allen Heath mixer like the Xone 62 or Xone 92, there's a little white button that says split cue that does the same sort of thing. Okay, so that's basically our audio mixer in the middle. Very standard, very simple. It may look different than what you're used to, but it's got all the same standard functions of a normal DJ mixer. Now on the outsides, the MIDI controller, each side has some on-off buttons. These ones at the bottom light up when they're turned on, which is kind of neat. We have an optical jog wheel. We have a endless rotary knob. I say endless because it goes around forever. And it also has a push function, so you could use that as an on-off or a toggle between something that has 5 or 6 different states. We have all kinds of on-off push buttons here. We have some linear faders. We have some, I don't know what you would call this actually. This is a limited rotation rotary knob because it only goes from one side to the other. It doesn't go around forever. And we have some more endless rotation rotary knobs with push functions up at the top. And of course this side of the MIDI controller is the same as this side. So basically that's all we need to know about the mixer. I guess there's a headphone level in the front of the mixer. There's mic inputs and there's headphone outputs. We can go with either 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch headphone outputs on the front. Okay, so I've cleared all of the effects out of our previous set and we've got everything set up. I want to start adding some effects to these channels, so we've got stuff to play with. Now, I'm not going to use send returns right now for all of my effects, because the problem with a send return is the send return sends a signal to the return track, but then that return track goes to the master. But we're not using the master, so we're not going to be able to hear that signal. Now, could we have the return track send the processed signal back to the track it came from? Well, not easily, because remember, the source could be coming from any of several different tracks. So for now, let's keep this simple, and we'll just drag and drop our effects that we're looking for onto each track, even though it's a little bit more processor intensive. So, flanger. I want a flanger on each track. And the settings, yes, I like those settings. We won't change them. So we'll drag a flanger onto each track. Secondly, I want to have a reverb unit. So there's our reverb, and we've got it on left channel. Looking at the settings quickly, yeah, I think we'll keep that the way it is. So we'll just put that basic reverb on each of our 4 tracks, each of our 4 channels, sorry. Third, I want a ping pong delay. So we'll put it on left channel 1, and I don't like the feedback up there, so I'm going to put that down to around 19. And if I had changed, you know, I can drag that and change it each time. But if I had actually changed a lot of settings here, it might be time consuming. You can click on it, hit Control-C to copy, Control-V. Oh, no, sorry, you cannot. Try holding down Control and then drag and drop onto the track. And see how my one on my left channel was set at 19, and then this one was set at 21. The one I dragged and dropped was a copy of the previous settings. Okay, so let's do that once more. Control, drag, drop, and it's on the right channel. And just for consistency, I'll put this one up to 21, although I don't think anyone would ever notice the difference. Okay, our next, we're going to put an echo effect, and that's called the beat repeat. So let's try that on our left channel. And I'm going to make some changes to this one. I'll give it some variation, put it up around there. I will decrease the chance factor from absolute certainty to most of the time. And I'll decrease my volume a little bit. So with those three changes, let's drag and drop a copy onto each track. Okay, and finally the last effect, a pan. Now this one's called the auto pan. So drag and drop, and the amount is going to be how am I going to do this? We're going to set that to notes so that it pans in time with the music. When it's on hertz, hertz is a measure of frequency, which is, you know, hertz is the number of cycles per second of anything. So at 1 hertz it means just every second it'll do a cycle, but if our beats aren't going in time to a 1 second cycle, then that's going to sound weird. So let's set it for note, and let's set it so it goes for, say, half a bar, whatever it is that's going to happen. Okay, and so we will drag and drop copies of that onto each track. Now, let's play a song and play with the effects and make sure they work. Okay, so each one will turn on one after the other. Here's the dry wet. Okay, that seems to be good. We'll turn that, we'll leave that on. Okay, we'll turn the reverb on. Dry wet. Okay, that seems to work. Ping pong, dry wet. Okay, that's good. Beat repeat. Okay, there's no dry wet on this one, and that's way too loud. So it's more of an on-off effect is what we'll want to be using. And auto pan. Okay, that looks good. So, now, what did we change? Our flangers, I would rather see a higher bass frequency for the high pass. So let's change that on all of them right now. And remember, on the beat repeat, we made some changes. We changed the volume down to -15. Close enough. And finally, for all of these, we'll have them all start defaulting with volumes down, volume down, volume down, off, volume down. So down, 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 off, down, and down, 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 off, down. Okay, so basically they're all starting effectively turned off. So now that we've decided what we want for effects, our next job is to map them to controls on our MIDI controller. So we'll go Control M to get into mapping mode, and it's not working for some reason. Okay, there we are. We're into MIDI mapping mode. Now we have a lot of stuff that we want to do. Let's look at the mixer. And basically on the mixer here, I want to have this set up so the following. These buttons, I want to turn on and off the tracks. So these things. So let's do that right now. Okay, that looks good. Now, for my flanger on the 4 channels, these are the knobs that I want to make the flangers work. And they're going to be tied to the dry wet. So let's click channel 1. spin, channel 2, spin, channel 3, spin, channel 4, spin. Okay, that looks good. For my reverbs, I want them on this row of knobs. So let's go channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. For my ping pongs, I want them on those knobs. So channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. For my echoes, my beat repeat, I kind of want them to do something with these faders, but realistically, right now we need an on-off switch first. So let's go channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. Is there anything that we can change and assign to the faders? Sure, let's do our filter. So we want our filter frequency. So let's go here, channel 2, filter frequency, channel 3, filter frequency, channel 4, filter frequency. Okay, for the auto pan, we'll go with this row of knobs. So on channel 1, amount, channel 2, amount, channel 3, amount, channel 4, amount. This pan is it's an effect-based pan, but remember we also have a pan here on our channel, just a simple left-right that we can set. Let's put that on this row of knobs. So channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. We already have our track on-offs. We don't need to automate the volumes because we could use the volumes on our mixer. Now I see somehow I've accidentally managed to put a mapping on that control and that control, so I'll take those off. I think that's everything. Now, let's do some experimenting again, see what happens. Okay, so what do we have? Here we have our flanger. Okay, not working. What about our reverb? Yep, that seems to be working. Okay, down here we have our ping pong. Okay, that's good. Down here we have our on-off for our beat repeat. Remember that doesn't really seem to do much at first. And we have our slider. Okay, it's working even though you can't really hear a whole lot. Up here we have our auto pan. And you probably won't be able to hear that well on the YouTube video, but it is panning back and forth between the two sides, left to right. And then here we have assigned to our actual channel control, left, right. That's good. And then finally, we have our on-off for the track. Okay, it looks like number 4 did not map. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I think everything is working so far. Now I'm going to set a maximum value in each channel here of -4, or I'm going to set the constant value at -4. And the reason I can set it at a constant level is we're not going to play with these fader mixers anymore, because we're playing with our volumes on these. Okay, so at this point I think everything is well set up. Let's hide our input-output routings because they seem to be working. Let's hide our mixer, should we? Is that smart? Nah, maybe not, because we want to see which of these channels are actually turned on. But we can make it smaller so there's less clutter. Delay, we don't need to see. Crossfader, we don't need to see. Okay, I think we are mostly set up. We should go through and test the controls on everything. So let me play with those for a minute. Okay, so I've had a chance to go through all of my MIDI mappings and make sure that they all work. Most of them did. There were a couple that were off, so always a good idea to test everything before you play. Now, I did say that you can save your MIDI mappings once you're happy with them. There's not really a save mapping function, at least not that I'm aware of, unless they've put one in recently. But what you do is you just set everything up the way you like it, and save it as your default set, because presumably you're going to keep using the same setup because you're used to it. So, like, I want to know that whenever I go into a place, I always go, boom, this is my line of reverbs. Boom, this is my line of ping-pongs, if that happens to be my personal preference. You don't want to have it changing from night to night. There's already too many distractions out there when you're DJing. You know, it could be dark, there's flashing lights in your eyes, sound quality could be poor on stage, there could be people yelling requests at you, scary. There could be, you know, promoters, club owners, all sorts of interruptions while you're DJing. So you've got to really try and make things as simple as possible for yourself so that you can focus your attention on the dance floor, stage presence, you know, smiling at people dancing, look like you're having fun. Don't look like you've got your head down in the mixer all the time or in the laptop. That's no fun for the crowd watching you perform, okay? They want to see the DJs feeling the same things they're feeling. So, let's give it a shot. Let's just play for a couple minutes here. And I think what I'll do is I'll start off, yeah. I'll have to experiment. This is not my normal configuration for Ableton, so I'm kind of trying to remember where everything is here. Okay, so pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Obviously, a lot of little things that you have to understand. The biggest challenges, I think, for me, playing with this, I don't actually use Ableton very often for DJ sets. Probably out of the last 100 times that I've DJ'd, I've probably used Ableton 3 or maybe 4 times at the most. I like DJing on CDs, I like DJing on vinyl, but this is so much more powerful, and so it's something that I need to practice with a little bit more before I start playing out. And it's also a little bit tricky because some of the venues I play in might not have access to the same mixer, and if I'm traveling overseas I don't want to carry my own mixer with me. But if you're playing in a decent club, they should have access to some sort of good mixer. So, you know, if you've got an opportunity, practice on different configurations, practice on high-end stuff like this, practice on simple stuff. Don't feel like you're any less of a DJ if you don't have a lot of fancy equipment, because ultimately the most important thing for you to remember as a DJ is that absolutely programming is the most important #1 thing. Programming is the term for picking the right music. Okay? So if you're not playing songs that people like to dance to, it doesn't matter how technically proficient you are, it doesn't matter how much good equipment you have, it doesn't matter if your beat mixing is good, if you're playing bad music, people will not like you as a DJ. So programming, first and foremost. Second thing, don't bite off more than you can chew. When you're starting out, you know, if you're not comfortable with a massive setup with all kinds of MIDI mapping and all sorts of fancy stuff, and you are comfortable with something more simple, play the more simple set. Practice and practice and practice till you get confident with a more complex setup before you try to play out, because you don't want to get out there and have things fall apart and you're stressed out because there's way too much going on. But it's like a simple mixer, like you can be on a 48 channel soundboard, and same concept. As soon as you figure out what one channel on the soundboard does, all the different things on it, it's not so intimidating because every channel does exactly the same thing across the soundboard. So once you understand, you know, the key part of it, then all the extra buttons and stuff doesn't intimidate you. Same thing with this sort of setup. Learn on simple stuff, get comfortable with that, and then when you move into more complex equipment, you won't be intimidated. I think that's all I have to say. I'm fairly certain that I will think of things that I wanted to say after I post all this stuff online, so don't be surprised if you see an appendix video or two. Certainly I'm thinking about doing a video that talks about all the different effects within Ableton. But I may have to do another to catch up any things that I forgot to explain to you. Also, like I say, I'm going to do a full set of my radio show, episode number 155, Subterranean Homesick Grooves, and I'll have that posted online here in a couple days, so if you want to listen to a longer, fuller set, then you have that opportunity. Anyway, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If any of this stuff has been useful to you, I would really appreciate it if you could share this stuff on your Facebook pages or Twitter streams or whatever, or a message board. And also, if you have access to people that are doing bookings, don't be scared to throw them my name. Okay, thanks.